I'm Ronald from Online Film Club, and welcome. Today I'll be exploring the Arvolution Player Mini. That's the Arvolution Player Mini, R_Volution, a device provided to me by its American distributor, Let's Get Physical. As a home theater enthusiast, a fancy way of saying I have some speakers and a receiver at home, I'm always on the lookout for ways to simplify and enhance my viewing experience. One of the challenges in creating a truly immersive home theater setup is managing multiple devices to handle different media types. Let me explain. Home theater enthusiasts often prefer physical media like DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks, and more because they provide the best possible versions of movies and TV shows. And it doesn't compromise video and audio either, which is really cool. Streaming services are convenient, but they rarely match the fidelity of physical media or locally stored files. Here's my current setup. Right now, I have an Oppo. That's my first device. And that's for 4Ks, Blu-rays, DVDs, and I rely on the Oppo UPD 203. It's region-free, which means it handles discs from all over the world. It plays Blu-rays, DVDs, Blu-ray ISOs, and BMDV folders. These files replicate the full disc experience without actually physically having a disc, complete with menus and extras. Now, the Apple TV, that's my go-to for streaming apps like Plex, MB, Jellyfin. That handles HDR formats like Dolby Vision, HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and it handles it better than most. So that's my go-to. I pretty much use it every day. But it doesn't do uncompressed Atmos and DTS:X. So I find myself using my third option, the NVIDIA Shield. This is the workhorse. This is the one that everybody kind of uses as their home theater mainstay. Universally respected for playing home media, it offers flawless audio pass-through, supporting lossless formats like Atmos and DTS:X. And that works well with HDR and Dolby Vision, but it doesn't look quite as good as the Apple TV. You know, I'm a little conflicted. So combining these three devices gives me an ideal home theater device, but it's far from convenient. So it made me wonder, what if there was one device to rule them all? A single device capable of playing every format, from Blu-ray ISOs, BMDV files, lossless audio, and delivering accurate HDR performance in a sleek interface that also has trailers. And that's exactly what the Arvolution Mini Player claims to do. So the big question, can this device deliver all of that it promises? Does it have the quality and functionality to replace my current setup? I'm gonna put it to the test and see if it can play all the formats that it claims to play in the quality that it claims to play. So let's dive in. The packaging is pretty simple. It comes with a remote. This is a backlit remote. You press this thing and lights up, which is really cool. I'm a big fan of that. It has an infinite amount of buttons. If you're in the DVD menu or Blu-ray menu, you can navigate through this thing pretty easily. I honestly was surprised at the range of this remote and its ability to kind of maneuver through any situation. You want to watch a scene again? There's a rewind 60-second button. Want to rewind 10 seconds? There's a rewind 10 seconds button. You want to go to the menu on your Blu-ray? You can go to the menu. You want to get subtitles? You can get subtitles. You can download it. So this remote is kind of a catch-all. I was surprised. I thought this thing would only have 10, 11 buttons. It has over 30 buttons. I'm surprised. Arvolution, you did your thing on this, man. Like, I appreciate remote with too many buttons. I'd rather you have too many buttons than too little buttons. So they succeeded in that way. It comes with a QR code that leads to the manual, which is in PDF format. Pretty cool. 3 antennas, power cable, and international plugs, as well as ones for the States. So one thing to know is that it doesn't come with batteries. This token is actually to get into the Arvolution R player, the media player. Now, people that have things like the Zapiti know about the history of Arvolution. Arvolution is taking over for the Zapiti, so you can use that token to actually become a member. If you don't have it, you have to pay for the Arvolution media player sort of ecosystem monthly, because it does have a cloud element to it, which I'll talk about a little later. This is what the Arvolution looks like when you first turn it on. It is a really cool, sleek system, easy to use. I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a bit. The question that I was being challenged with is, can this thing play all the formats? And what I did was I kind of made a composite of things, Dolby Digital, which is typically the format that's in streaming and things like that. I got some DTS lossless. I got some Atmos lossless. And I also got some IMAX DTS:X, which is typically in Sony film. All right, so here's the Arvolution setup. This is the Arvolution Media Player app. There's applications. The cool part about this is that they let you open it up to getting the Google store. So, if you want to expand, you want to run other applications, you can actually download the Google Play Store, any of these apps. They do have DRM protection, so you can run some of the streaming apps. Max is one, also Amazon Prime Video and Disney Plus. A lot of those apps can run Atmos as well as Dolby Vision and HDR Plus, which is really cool. You typically will find a lot of Android devices where some of those videos in the quality that they, Max is pushing a Dolby Vision video, and you cannot get that on some devices. You can get that on this, which is pretty cool. Now, the video app, you have to set up, you have to create an online account with your email address and that token that I showed you earlier. This is my collection. I did a small file set just to test how things work. Like I said, DTS, things like that. And I'm noticing that anything that I throw at this thing works. Its identification system is pretty easy. It has what's called a file collection system. In order to add new content, you just go over here. It's a folder management system where you can add things. This is my NAS drive. You just add plus, you pick the category that you want to choose, and then you go and point to the online, wherever it is on the server. You can also do local files. I tried that a little bit, but I think what I was more concerned about is how does this thing run network things, particularly ISO files, which I was pretty concerned about because a lot of devices claim to play ISO files and they do not. So what I did was I ripped a couple of my files and I tried to run a Blu-ray, a 4K Blu-ray image. This is a 80 gig file that contains an entire Blu-ray image, including lossless audio. And I wanted to see if this thing worked. When you use this ISO file, it will ask if you want to launch it. Obviously, I want to launch it. There are some regions involved with the 4Ks, not very many. Typically when it comes to, as you can see, it plays the 4K with no problem. It has the whole menu. I'm talking about extras. You could go to the scene selection. It is the entire Blu-ray, which is really cool because there's a lot of devices that claim to do this but don't do it. Now, one thing I will show you, I have a Denon device that shows the input that it has for the audio. Everything is coming out lossless. You do see that it's indicating that it is a DTS audio mix, which is really cool. So plays it. The video is represented really well. Dolby Vision, HDR Plus, HDR 10 Plus. I actually don't have 10 Plus because I have a OLED. HDR and HDR Plus do play on this with no issue. So yeah, that's one of the files that I tried to play. Works with no issues. The organization of this takes a little getting used to. There's a little bit of a learning curve, which I'm okay with. I decided to get a bunch of files that really test this thing. Like how good does lossless play on this thing? And I'm finding, to be completely honest with you, anything I throw at this thing works. I'm pretty satisfied with it. The cool part is if you have a file and it hasn't been identified, you can actually go and correct it, which is really cool. So, I mean, this thing's pretty incredible at identifying files, but there's an identification system that you can use that'll scan through it, and you can select the right one if it's incorrect and fix it. I think that this thing's pretty straightforward. The profile of each file is listed here. So, you see the audio mixes that you have and the type of video that you have. So if you look at the top, UHD, this is HDR10. For Dolby Vision, it'll show Dolby Vision. If it's a movie, it will give the director and things like that. So like, for example, I got Blazing Saddles. Mel Brooks, this is the entire Blu-ray. It has the directors, and you can look at a trailer for each as well. Some of them actually play the trailer in the background depending on which one you get. For example, this is Borderlands. You see that there's a 2.0 Espanol Dolby Digital and a 5.1, but also it has Atmos, which is pretty cool. Man, now, one of the things that I was really worried about was how does this thing throw around sound? I have a home setup that it's amateur, but it's up there. It's up there. I have 4 subwoofers. I actually have a setup video that I'm gonna also put on the channel that you can check out. This thing handles all the formats like a champ. from DTS to Atmos to Dolby Digital, even upscaling. I mean, upmix is 2.0. So like if you have something that is just stereo and you're looking to upscale it a bit, this device can do it. It can handle it with no issues. Now, in terms of the crispness of this, I don't know if I've seen anything besides the Apple TV that represents video quite as well as this. Like, I mean, it is uncanny how clear this stuff looks, how it sounds. I think that this thing's a winner. I guess the question at the end of the day is, does this replace an NVIDIA Shield? Does it replace an Apple TV? And the answer is, if you can find the applications that you want in this setup through the Google Store and the Android system, if you have a Plex setup that you also want to share on here, this does do Plex pretty well. And it does do MB, it does Jellyfin. I've tried them all. Now, I will say this, it doesn't run Plex quite as well with a 4K 7.1 setup. That's what the actual Arvolution app is for. You can run it through that. That works really well. I think this is a catch-all, man. I think this app does take care of a lot of what you want. I would use this to replace an NVIDIA Shield. I would use it to replace an Apple TV if you want one thing. Maybe I'd use two devices. I'd maybe use the Blu-ray player and this, but it wouldn't replace every single thing because it doesn't do physical discs. But in terms of the digital stuff, the digital realm, this thing's incredible. Arvolution did their thing with this. And the fact that they're opening it up to getting Android apps and things like that as well, you know, it's not a walled garden in that way. They're like, hey, if you want to expand beyond our app, you can expand beyond our app, and it can become a one-stop shop. So honestly, I would suggest this thing. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. No, take that back. That's an 8.5 out of 10 for me. This is flawless in that way. I did have one file that didn't play, and I think it was just because it was encoded bad, but this thing is incredible.